Let me ask you a question. How do you starve a tumor cell? Any idea? When an animal or a person is eating primarily fats with moderate proteins and not many carbohydrates, their body will adapt into a state called ketosis. This is the fundamental premise of the ketogenic diet, where the body burns fat molecules called ketones for energy rather than sugar or carbohydrates.
A ketone is a water-soluble metabolite of fat. Okay, so if we stop eating for a couple of days, after 36 hours, stop eating, we're not taking in food. So our body has an ability to generate energy from within. And we have a quick storage which is called glycogen, which is in our liver and muscles. And that's just long chains of sugars hooked together. So when we stop eating and we start going to glycogen, so we start chopping down this chain and we get sugar that way. But the body hormonally recognizes that we're starting to cut into a ready reserve. And therefore, another hormone, glycogen, turns on and starts to take fat from our body. Our adipocytes start releasing triglycerides into the bloodstream. And the triglycerides, which are just fat molecules, basically, is your white fat is triglycerides. That goes to the liver, and the liver has enzymes that, like a wood chipper, like putting logs into a wood chipper, these long-chain fatty acids go into the hepatocytes, these liver cells, and they chop up these fats into these water-soluble ketone bodies. And the ketone bodies now flood into the bloodstream, and they serve as the alternative fuel to glucose, in the brain especially, because the brain uses almost exclusively glucose. It doesn't burn fatty acids, whereas heart will burn fatty acids. And liver burns fatty acids for energy, and muscles burn fatty acids. But all the cells will burn ketones and fatty, except the brain, they only burn ketones. So glucose or ketones, they don't burn anything else. So what we're doing then is transitioning the energy away. Now, well, why can't the tumor cells use the ketones? Well, what makes them? And it turns out ketones require a strong mitochondria. Every cell has the energy processing to make ATP, these little organelles called mitochondria. And Warburg said the mitochondria are defective. Well, a lot of people say Warburg was wrong because they have evidence that mitochondria look okay. Well, that's only on the surface. When you look on deep, you can see that they have problems. As a matter of fact, we tested Warburg's theory by examining mitochondria structure and function in a whole range of different spontaneous tumors. And none of them had normal lipid composition in the mitochondria, meaning they can't work right, meaning they can't burn ketones. And now, to this day, no one has found any tumor that has a normal composition of this lipid called cardiolipin. It's a special lipid inside the mitochondria that controls the respiratory system. No tumor has this, correct.
So they can't burn ketones?
They can't effectively burn. Maybe they can stumble along a little bit, but many tumor cells have very few mitochondria. The mitochondria they have are defective, so they're not going to be able to utilize the alternative fuel of ketones. So this now becomes an elegant way to marginalize and kill tumor cells.
Once they become highly malignant and they're just using glycolysis, this inefficient method for energy, that's sugar. And what the cells can't use is ketones, which happens when we either starve or have a high-fat, moderate protein, and almost zero carbohydrate diet. So this then opens up cancer's Achilles heel. And my mission was to explain this science in the book and to show why it is that no matter what else we do, we must use two things. One is a ketogenic diet, and the other is calorie restriction. Using those two things, any cancer can be starved, but you have to be very strict about what you do.
When you burn fat for fuel, you create a special type of water-soluble fat called ketones. And ketones easily permeate into the brain and all the cellular tissue. They don't need a carrier to go through. And the great thing about ketones is that they burn very efficiently. And they don't create much reactive oxygen species, which can cause a secondary free radical, which is what causes the damage. It's these free radicals that will cause single and double-stranded DNA breaks. Not in the mitochondria. They cause them in the mitochondria because that's where most of the free radicals are created, but then secondarily they cause it in the DNA, which causes the genetic damage that nearly every conventional physician believes is the cause of cancer, and nothing could be further from the truth. Cancer is very rarely has a genetic component. There is genetic damage, no question, but it's mediated by metabolic damage that causes secondarily the DNA damage or genetic damage.
Have you seen the ketogenic diet show progress with animals?
Oh yeah, and for the reasons, because the compliance issue is a non-issue when it comes